St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We FM is SVG.
20 minutes on to 11 o'clock here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You're locked on to WeFM 99.9, the clean, fresh sound, and this is your It's Your Turn program. Remember, It's Your Turn is an interactive program, so the numbers to call are 457-9997 if you're calling from a local landline, 532-9997 if you're calling from a digital cell phone, or you can send us a message or call us on WhatsApp at 457-9997. The It's Your Turn program is being hosted by Mr. Cecil Ryan and Mr. Philbert John. Good morning to you, Cecil.
Good morning to you, Karen, and good morning to Philbert, and good morning to all our listeners, wherever you are. We're happy to be with you another Sunday morning on the premier Sunday morning program, Issue at Hand, on the leading radio station in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, WeFM, the clean, fresh sound. It's good to be back another Sunday on Issue at Hand, and as we usually say, it's a family affair. The radio station is a family affair, so also, of course, is Issue at Hand, a family affair. So we welcome all members of the family to the program this morning, and we look forward. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Cecil, and good morning. Good morning, Kieran. Good morning to all of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and to all persons listening to WeFM wherever you are, whether you're in a neighboring territory, whether you are in the diaspora, wherever you are, good morning and welcome to another edition of Issue at Hand. As Cecil says, this is the premier calling program you get on any radio station at this time of the week, this time of the day. And as usual, we intend to bring you interesting discussion. Quite a number of issues you can touch on, but we have a particular focus today, which Cecil will share with you. Right, Cecil?
Yes, Philbert, and just as soon as you finish, I'll give you your greetings. I'll come in and mention it.
Okay. It's a beautiful Sunday, and maybe this is why it is called Sunday, because it's definitely a sunny day today. And the weather is beautiful, particularly out here at Windy Point. Cool breeze, brilliant sunshine. And like we said, we bring to you some interesting ideas today as we look at this particular topic. Cecil.
Yes, Philbert. And the topic is, quote, the Zero Hunger Trust Fund, 10 years and positioning for greater impact going forward. That's not the theme for that's celebrating this 10th anniversary. That is not the theme, but we just captured the essence of it in this in the title for the discussion this morning. So we're expecting two persons to join us shortly. We expect them to be here anytime. So just to let our listeners know that we can be looking at the Zero Hunger Trust Fund. They've been in existence for 10 years, having been brought into existence by a law passed in 2016. We're going to get into all of that and details of all of that. And now they're positioning for greater impact as they go forward. So, Pigeon, yes, that's it.
Yes. Cecil, we're just coming off the heels of inter-secondary school athletic championship. A day before that, we had the primary school athletics championship. I just want to make a few comments on the secondary school championship. Let me begin by extending commendations to and congratulations to the top schools in the competition. We had in the boys division, we had the St. Martin Secondary School in third place. They seem to be reviving after a slow period for some time now. And the second, we had the Barley Secondary also known as the Central Leeward Secondary, and the grammar school came out champions in the boys division, and it seems as if they've been champions forever. I can't recall a year when they were not champions in the boys division.
Yeah.
In the girls division, we had I think it's the Bethel High School. Correct me if I'm wrong, and what they were told. In the second place, we had the girls' high school. The girls' high school had dominated that position for some time, but it has now been dominated by the Barley Secondary School.
Okay.
That is the first position. The girls' high school, the Barley Secondary School, aka Central Leeward, place forces or champions. I didn't attend it. It's the first in a long time I haven't attended the championship, but
Oh, you mean in person?
yeah, in person.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see.
But I followed it on television. VC3 brought it. And I was impressed. The teams look well organized, well outfit. And it seemed to be a more of a positive spirit more than anything else. However, it's unfortunate that subsequent to the events, some images were circulating showing what appeared to be items of weapons, mainly scissors, even Afro-combs, that were claimed to be taken away from students and young people who were attending the event. It's rather unfortunate that what was quite a well organized event turned out to be that was the image we got from the event.
The end image, yeah.
Yeah. Which brings me to a point. It seems as if quite frequently we're hearing about violence in schools. Remember the young lady who passed away a few Sundays ago, Alia, was succumbed to a violent incident. And we're hearing reports of violence in school. And then we see this picture emerging from the inter-school sports. It's showing that the issue of violence seems to be very, very, very serious. And the bearing of weapons, or what appears to be weapons, among our school children. That is probably something we need to talk about one of these days, and what is happening. Is it that there's a rise in this kind of behavior, or it is just that it is being shown more often because of social media? So with social media, it is easy to pick up activities and show them to the rest of the public. So,
well, Pijan, I agree with you. Definitely, we ought to focus. One of these Sundays, we should focus our discussion on that whole issue. Unfortunately, it can't be today because we have something lined up already, and neither can it be next week because we also have something lined up for next week. But I guess subsequently, even as we approach the carnival season, it might be an appropriate time to look at that particular topic, including having some experts in studio with us But just yes, social media provides the medium for highlighting those things in photographs and so on. But the question is that new? I mean, is it
In my
new?
experience, it's not necessarily a new phenomenon. What is new is the presence of the medium, social media, making it easier for this to be brought to our attention. And people do things for likes. So the more likes you have, the more popular your account is. So whatever is there to be shown, they just show it.
But
irrespective of it.
we have to admit, Pigeon, certainly that is not the story of inter-school athletics.
Exactly.
This is not the story. The story is of the good runs and whatever else, the good performances that we've had. And you were highlighting some, like in the case of Barrow School, Grammar School, Bethel, and so on and so forth. There were a number of positive things coming out of that, both the primary and secondary school meets held at the Vincent Beach Athletics Stadium. And if the stadium itself provides positive setting, positive image, those things were not highlighted. Instead, we saw the taste that is left is that these are a whole bunch of bad young people who carry dangerous weapon to the meet and so on and so forth. Yes, there were these things, but that wasn't the story. The story was really the performances. A number of them, as I understand, a number of the athletes broke records. Why not highlight those and the students?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just find it amazing the way we think these days. Yeah, sorry, Peter.
We have connected to that. We have an announcement of a team of 15 young people
Going after character.
going after character.
Yeah.
That's, to me, sound like a relatively high number.
Yeah.
For the period.
And that's the story. That's his story. You know what I mean? And that's a story that I thought that API would want to focus on that, highlight that. Those are positivities for the young people to read and know about, to hear about, to see on social media. It's not a story of badness and bad boyism and so on. That's not the story. I am sorry. I reject that.
In my experience, the vast majority of our students are good people.
In fact, the vast majority of our young people, by far, the vast majority of our young people.
It seems easier to focus on the tiny minority that gives issues.
That's unfortunate.
And that is what happened. You like the story coming out of interschool is the cache of weapons that the police apparently took away, rather than as you said, the performances,
the record-breaking
performances and so on.
Yeah, Pigeon. Anyway, there are some other positive things happening, Pigeon, in the world. I just want to highlight. Are you finished? Can I go?
Yeah.
I just want to highlight a couple for sure. Pigeon, this week, led by Ghana, President of Ghana, the United Nations agreed. The majority of nations, representative nations at the United Nations agreed on the resolution to condemn the wickedness of slavery. I don't know if you want to highlight it, or I have a thing to play, but you can, yeah.
They claim slavery as it was. What do they use?
the worst crime really against
crime
humanity.
against humanity.
Yeah.
What I found interesting is the leader of the opposition
Where?
in the Labour Party
In England.
in England.
I laugh. That woman is anyway,
No, it's conservative.
conservative, not Labour Party, conservative. With Nigerian roots, eh?
Okay.
Badnock or something.
Badnock.
Yeah, Badnock, that's her name.
She against it.
She against it. She said that, well, the UK abstained in the vote. She said that the UK should have voted against it.
Yeah, yes.
I could not believe it.
No,
She will ask
for our
in
listeners,
politics. Let me.
why are we talking about Badnock? What makes her so special? She just happens to be of African descent.
Nigerian in particular.
And you thought it would have been natural for her to jump in and support such an act.
Yeah.
Well, she said she should have voted against it.
She's against it on monetary ground. She says it's too much money. Oh my goodness. She need to go and read her history and know her she just need to go and read. But Pigeon, let me just play an excerpt from the conclusion of the debate at the United Nations.
Vote at the United Nations on slavery.
Therefore, draft resolution A/80/L48 is adopted.
The UN General Assembly has declared that slavery is the gravest crime against humanity, specifically the enslavement of some 12 million Africans and their descendants through the transatlantic slave trade. The resolution put forward by Ghana was harshly criticized by the United States, where tens of millions of descendants of enslaved Africans live today. We'll be talking about that later on. First, I want to hear the reaction from Ghana. DW correspondent Isaac Kaleji is in the Ghanaian capital, Accra. Isaac, good to see you.
Thank you, David.
So before we talk more about this historic vote at the UN, let's just look at what the resolution says. The resolution calls the transatlantic slave trade the gravest crime against humanity. It calls for UN member states to engage in dialogue on a full and formal apology and for reparations as a concrete step toward remedying historical wrongs. The resolution also urges the prompt and unhindered restitution of cultural items to their countries of origin. 123 countries voted in favor of the resolution. 3 voted against it, including the United States, and 52 countries abstained, including the UK and all of the European Union. So, Isaac, let's start, though, with Ghana. How are people there reacting to the news?
So a lot of people have been following this particular campaign for a long time, like 3 years ago, but this year, it has been intense and people have been following, and a lot of celebrations in terms of people being happy about the fact that eventually their president was able to lead this campaign and the UN has adopted this resolution. So the reaction has been positive. People have been happy about the development today.
And Isaac, Ghana has been pushing for this resolution for a while now. Tell us more about what's behind that.
So Ghana has been the epicenter really of this whole narrative about slavery because the country has several castles and forts, and many of them were used in the this slavery trade that took place many centuries ago. And across the country, in fact, we have 2 of the key castles, the Elmina Castle and also the Kepo Castles, where people always come to visit to see the devastation that took place because of slavery. And we've seen this edifice there and trying to remember exactly how our forefathers actually had to struggle and be taken along the oceans to other parts of the world as slaves. It's something that really keeps people thinking. And I think that this drive or campaign for reparative justice actually is anchored on that we see the remnants of this and we think that something ought to be done, especially even with the issue of securing formal apology from countries that really carried out this particular activity, and in a way having some reparative justice for victims. So this has been ongoing for 3 years now, and eventually we've gotten to this point, driven, of course, by the passion of the current president who wanted to get this resolution adopted.
It's much longer than that, Pigeon, but I thought I'd stop it there because two things the person who was being interviewed said. One, he said that Ghana has been the epicenter for 3 years. Now I need to bring him to the Caribbean because, and at least I need to get a message to him to tell him that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been a force to reckon with, in the forefront of the struggle for reparatory justice. And in particular, our former Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, has been the individual, has been pushing that, not only from St. Vincent, but from the Caribbean, CARICOM level. But he said also that his president, fine, we have to recognize the work and the will of his president, the president of Ghana, but we also need to let them know that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has played and is continuing to play a pivotal role in the push for reparation or reparatory justice and all of that. So, but in any event, it's a powerful initiative. And the unfortunate thing is that a couple of things. One, the United States abstained. Britain abstained. The United States voted against. Israel voted against. Argentina voted against. And then the whole of Europe abstained. Now, these are the countries which started the wicked transatlantic slave journeys, and whose people exploited the Africans when they came on the slave system, when they came over in these parts of the world, the New World. And they're the ones who benefited massively. If you go to England, for example, you see all the banks, including Barclays Bank, all the banks, and the other factories. That's where enslaved labor was used to power these factories, industries, and so on. And they don't see the same thing in Holland, in Spain, in France, in Germany, every one of them, Italy. And they don't see the need to not even to express solidarity, far less to apologize for the wrongs of history.
And the man who started everything.
Yeah.
Left from Italy.
Yes. So-called Columbus on his discovery. I mean, I'm kind of chuckling, but it's not. I'm just chuckling because it's unbelievable that these people, well, I guess it's natural for them. It's natural. It's natural. I just find it amazing that the United States, all the wealth in the United States, the beginning of that wealth came really from the exploitation of Africans who were forced to work under slavery they were forced to work without payment. And even today, the system that is in place there, system of racism and all the rest of it. Right. People of African descent are still struggling and suffering, as is happening in our part of the world, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and the rest of the Caribbean. So I just find it, I only hope young people are paying attention rather than posting negative things. They need to be posting these things, paying attention, and continue to push for the same things that our people have been struggling for over the years. And in particular, the former government. I can say the former government with confidence because I don't know, I haven't heard anything from the present government as to where they stand in respect of these matters. It would be good to hear from the leadership of the government, our government in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, so our people know where they stand, because these things are not they're not trivial. These are fundamental, these are roots things. And the issue of transatlantic slavery is not, it's painful when I think and talk about these things. But yeah, I'm just baffled. And our good friend, Bagner, leader of the Conservative Party in the UK, she said that the UK should have voted against the resolution.
Anyone learn how come these words could emanate from such an attractive face?
Well, it's more than attraction. That's what I tell you. It's not so much the face, it's the substance behind the face. Obviously, there's not much substance in terms of these things. Yeah. Attraction might be one requirement, but far more important feature in terms of being involved at that level, you need substance. So anyway, Peter, last week we had our brother and comrade and colleague in the studio with us, Dexter Rose, and we were looking at the situation in Cuba. And Dexter led the discussion for an appeal to listeners to make contributions to the Cuban cause in terms of, to the Cuba Friendship Society, so that they can pass on whatever they're able to collect to their counterparts in Cuba. Unfortunately, I should have acted earlier, but I wasn't able to get an update on the amount collected or deposited so far. But I intend to do so by next week, because this is going to be an ongoing campaign. I intend to make it an ongoing thing to raise it whenever we come on the program. So next week, Sunday, hopefully, I'll have I hope to have a figure to share with our listeners. And I hope that people are continuing to make their contribution to the fund. I don't know if you know this, Peter, but I noticed that the government of Grenada is making $500,000 US.
Yes, yeah.
To the Cuban cause. I haven't heard from any other. I haven't heard about any other contribution from any other government in the region. But again, I certainly would hope that our government here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, beyond words, beyond making statements, would make something very concrete. I just hope so, because we and just like Grenada, we have so much to be thankful for from the Cuban. The way they've contributed to our development here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and to persons, whether it's in education, whether it's in health, they have contributed massively, and we need to recognize that, and at least show a token, if only, make a token contribution to say thank you to the Cuban people for what they've done for us. I kind of feel envious of the Grenadian government that they have seen it fit to contribute $500,000 US. And I really would like to hear a similar thing about our government here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I know I've heard former Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves making statement to the effect that had he been there, he would have been, our contribution would have guaranteed for sure. And in fact, I remember at one point I heard him say he would have been in Cuba himself. But the situation is different. There's now a different situation existing in St. Vincent. So I'd hope that at least we can make a contribution. There are the regular organizations. SCGC has in the past made significant contribution by shipment of rice and flour. We can do the same thing. I know there's other countries. I think China has shipped 60 million tons of rice, I think, for 3 months. I think, yes. At least that would allow them to go. Is it 3 months? Food for 3 months? At least, I mean, other people, other parts of the world who have not benefited from Cubans' generosity are doing things. I mean, come on, man. Let's have a heart. We can do something here in St. Vincent. In addition to supporting the appeal by the Cuba St. Vincent Friendship Society, but our government and private sector persons can do something. They all are benefiting. Their businesses are benefiting. The banks are benefiting. Everybody's benefiting from the work of the Cubans here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the engineers, the doctors, the personnel. So, folks, let's have a human heart and urge those we are in touch with and we ourselves make contribution to the effort to assist the situation in Cuba. I want to play this. I'll come back, but I just want to play this piece here from Fidel Castro, about Fidel Castro, sorry.
Terror across much of Africa.
Fidel Castro, it seems to Africans, was generally committed or interested in their liberation.
That's because under Castro's leadership, Cuba sent tens of thousands of troops and medical brigades to African countries to support the fight for independence from colonial rule. Sean Jacobs is the founding editor of Africa as a Country.
Normally what would happen is if a foreign entity comes to Africa and says that we're going to assist you with their freedom, they want something. This was not part of the Cuban rationale.
Though he was demonized by the West and faced a reported 600-plus assassination attempts, Castro's foreign policy is still celebrated around the world, and his legacy of exporting doctors, not bombs, continues. Former South African President Nelson Mandela even called Castro a source of inspiration to all freedom-loving people.
Cuba adopted a foreign policy that was called internationalism. Cuba deliberately set out to assist other parts of the world where people were still fighting for their freedom.
Among others, Cuban troops joined and supported battles against the French in Algeria and the Portuguese in Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. They also provided crucial support for the defeat of apartheid forces in South Africa and neighboring countries.
In the mid-1970s, South Africa was occupying Namibia, and it had begun to occupy the southern part of Angola. They were colluding with a rebel movement that was funded by the US called UNITA.
At this point, the US was allied with the South African apartheid regime. The People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola called on Cuba for help as the US-backed and South African apartheid forces sought control of the newly independent country. Cuban forces twice defeated the invading South African apartheid army in Angola in 1976 and 1988. Those victories reinvigorated the anti-apartheid movement against racist white minority rule back in South Africa.
At least more than half of the people in Cuba are of African descent. And so having an army of black people defeat this very powerful white army that is representative of white supremacy, supported by the US, and defeating them in that part of the world. And then that leading then to the independence of Namibia. South Africa withdraws from Namibia, withdraws from Southern Angola, and then you see the release of Nelson Mandela from jail. So if you're in that part of the world, that's how you think of Fidel Castro.
Thousands of Cubans died while fighting in Africa.
There's a long history of people interacting with Cubans, not as invaders, but as showing friendship and solidarity.
Cuba supported the independence and development of some former African colonies by providing doctors, nurses, teachers, engineers, and soldiers.
What was the legacy of the US in that part of the world? It was sabotage, it was funding violent groups. If you were an unfortunate victim of their violence, it was called collateral damage. They supported the South African government, the white South African government. Nelson Mandela was still on a US terrorist watch list up until the early 2000s. So if you contrast that hypocrisy and undermining, if you want, the people of Africa with the approach of the Cubans, anybody who's from that part of the world can see what's going on.
Despite suffering under a decades-long US blockade, Cuba continues to send medical teams around the world, from Haiti to Italy. And while the West lagged behind, it was Cuban doctors who were leading the fight against the Ebola outbreak in West Africa.
It's the same principle of internationalism, sending medical help, sending engineers. It wasn't about gaining an advantage. This was purely about solidarity. I always joke that if Africa was a country, then Fidel Castro would be seen as one of its national heroes.
a historic vote at the United Nations on slavery.
Therefore, draft resolution A/80/L48 is adopted.
The UN General Assembly has declared that slavery is the gravest crime.
Yeah, so yes, that was meant to be only on the situation in Cuba. So let me again urge persons who followed our discussion last week and the persons who are on with us today, and just Vince's generally, and whoever is listening to us, hearing our voices now, that the situation in Cuba, or Cuba, requires our attention, our assistance, our solidarity. The Cuban people do. They reached out to us and people around the world in their hours of need. Let's respond. Let's make a contribution. Just to remind persons, the Cuba SVG Friendship Society, they have an account at the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's 130016. That's the account number. The Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Cuba SVG Friendship Society, the bank account that is at the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is 130016. Let's make a contribution. And hopefully, when our government, notice that people are taking the lead here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that they too will see the need to make a significant contribution, just as Grenada did, $500,000. Grenada has made that contribution to the situation in Cuba. I just want to call on the banks and the financial institutions. I know a number of them will be having the AGMs soon. For example, GECO, Kingston Credit Union, Police Credit Union, they're all having their AGM soon. Teachers Credit Union. Have a heart and remember what Cuba's done. And in fact, Pijan, the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines seem to have done well last year from the statement they published in I am seeing one in the Vincentian newspaper where they're able now to give, they're able to pay dividends on shares. And it's significant, you know. So they seem to have done well. And I'm sure they won't mind making a contribution to the cause, the Cuban people. The statement is on page 5, I think, yeah, of the Vincentian for Friday, last Friday, March 27. So please, those of you who are able to do so, take a look at it and see how well the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines continues to do after it was given fresh leadership and fresh momentum during the life of the previous government. I noticed, for example, that I'm trying to find, yes. I noticed, for example, that earnings per share, whereas it was $2.33 last year, and in the previous statement, in this one, for 2025, 2024 was $2.33. 2025, it will be $2.66. That's a significant increase, significant movement. And other figures are there. We don't have time this morning to go into those figures. That one jumped out at me, and I know a colleague of mine and myself happy that the earnings per share jumped from $2.33 to $2.66. That's encouraging. But the bank continues to do well, and we hope that they will make a noteworthy contribution to the cause, to the Cuban cause, if not through the St. Vincent Cuba Friendship Society. So they can do direct things to perhaps the embassy here or something of that nature. But it's worth doing. Cuba has helped us tremendously, and we owe a debt of gratitude and appreciation to the Cuban people.
And we must not forget our students who are currently in Cuba
Exactly.
studying, and they have it difficult. And this matter is not about just a general issue. It's personal to some of us, because I think almost every Vincentian probably knows a student in Cuba or who went to Cuba and benefited from studies.
The person on your right, Pigeon, right now.
Yes, Miss Hahn, I know that.
Oh, I was going to come. I wasn't going to release that information, but I mean, we have to put somebody in our midst right now who fits that that this description that you've given. Yes. So let's come together for Cuba. It's worth it. We have an obligation. We owe Cuba that much. All right, Pigeon, I want to give a shout out to all our regular listeners, our seniors, and everybody. And in honor of all our listeners, and in particular our seniors, I want to play this tune.
I don't move as good as I used to. Some days it takes me a minute or two, but the world keeps turning like it's meant to do, and time don't wait, it just carries you through. I've had good days and a few slip away, had a few things work out a different way, but you live long enough and you'll see it's true. The things worth keeping take time to come through. We're just passing through time, like the wind through the pines. Just small little pieces in a bigger design. The older I get, the more that I know. There ain't nothing wrong with being another day old.
Pigeon, I'd like to.
I don't move as good as I used to.
I'd like to play this tune particularly for the attention of young people. That it's good to live one day longer, so that they could do that courtesy to their colleagues and friends. That living old is a good thing. We should not aim to shorten the lives they should not aim to shorten the lives of their buddies and their sisters and so on. It's worth living. We have a call, Pigeon. Let's take this early call and hear what the person has to say. Good morning. Welcome to the program. Morning.
I love music and program. That is it.
Good morning.
You said you like the music.
Oh, you like the music? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Well, I like to play a longer version, but unfortunately, we have our guests for the main topic this morning. Some of the time we'll play it again.
All right.
All right, then. Good. Thanks for calling. Well, at least I'm encouraged by the fact that one person called to say he or she likes that music. It's for real, and I really would like to send that message to young people in particular, that let's give and let's give. Let's allow your buddy, your sister, your whoever, your friend to live another day. Don't take the easy route and the simpler thing that you think is simpler. Let them live. Don't go the easy way of violence. It doesn't pay. Is there any other thing you want to raise quickly? No? Okay. So our main discussion this morning is about the Zero Hunger Trust Fund. And the Zero Hunger Trust Fund, as people might know, those of you who listen might know, otherwise the acronym is ZHTF. and it was established by an act of parliament in 2016. And its main functions are to finance, coordinate, and deliver high-impact programs that support children, older persons, vulnerable households, farmers, and youth, while strengthening national resilience to economic and climate shocks. Oh, I've captured it. And we have two outstanding young people in studio here to help us along that discussion this morning. And Pigeon, should I give you the honor to introduce? Starting with, okay, all right. All right, I'll do that. I'll introduce our Cuban educated, that is tertiary education, colleague, and then allow her to introduce her colleague. And the person I'm speaking about, my own good friend and my special and dearest friend's daughter. My dearest friend has passed away some years ago, unfortunately. Her name was Olin Horn of the UPM Diamondites fame from Diamond. And now she has a number of offspring who studied in Cuba. And we have one of them right here in studio with us now who heads the Zero Hunger Trust Fund. Her name is Safia Horn DeBeek. Safia, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thank you, Mr. Ryan, for having us. Thank you, Mr. John. We are happy to be here as we celebrate 10 years of Zero Hunger Trust Fund in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. As you said, I'm the CEO, and with me today is Shafiq Sam, who is the program analyst with the ZHTF. I just want to correct one thing, though.
Yes.
You may think I'm young, but I'm no longer young.
No, well, that's relative. That was relative.
That's relative.
Yeah,
Shafiq can claim young.
Really, that's you and me.
But to you, yes, I am.
Okay, because I remember the days when I used to be in Diamond with your mom.
Yeah.
You used to be a little. Your mom used to be carrying you around while we go to meetings and consultations and in the farm and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So now you can understand why you.
Definitely.
It's good to have you on. It's good to have you here with us.
Happy to be
I missed you yesterday, man.
Yeah, no, I didn't go out yesterday.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I missed you.
I didn't go out yesterday.
All right. Well, in this week, I'm hoping to be there. So I hope you to see you.
Yes.
All right. So good to have everyone here in studio with us. Shafiq. Shafiq.
Yes.
Yeah, Shafiq. Shafiq's face look youthful, more youthful than he appears in the photo in present.
On the precipice of the transitioning out to youth,
Oh,
there are levels to this,
Oh, okay. Tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, transition out of youth.
Okay, so basically there are different definitions of youth, right? So
Okay.
the UN would say the definition of youth is anybody up until 35.
Mhm.
Previous definitions in our youth policy would say up until 30.
Mhm.
So I'm 34, so I'm transitioning.
Oh,
out.
I see.
But then
Okay.
other definitions say like up to 40, etc.
But you still don't look like 34, for sure.
Well, thank Jesus, that's all I can say.
Yeah. So yeah, Safia, well, we're going to be talking about the Zero Hunger Trust Fund. Well, that one is a youthful one. I mean, 10 years.
10, definitely.
Yeah. Tell us something. Wherever you want to start, tell us something about it.
I could start with what we are.
Mhm.
And we have been trying for the past few years to put ourselves out there more so that Vincentians would understand what we do, what they have access to through the Zero Hunger Trust Fund. As you indicated in your introduction, it started with an act of parliament 10 years ago. A matter of fact, April 6th is the day that the fund became operational. We in the fund call it Zero Hunger Day. And that gave the mandate for us to finance program to eradicate hunger in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That is not an easy task. It's not an easy task. It's very ambitious, and we spent the last 10 years with some ups and downs trying to tackle programs to give immediate relief for hunger, but also structural programs that addresses the causes, because you can't do one without the other. And our organization has been evolving, and this year we thought it fitting as 10 years to make sure that every Vincentian knows that we exist and what we do and how we do what we do. We have been working across, we say the life cycle in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we have programs that support from children in primary school, secondary school, to the elderly. And then we have programs that support households. We have programs that support small farmers. We have programs that touches everywhere in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The fund is the expression of our government's commitment to fulfill the targets for SDG 2, Sustainable Development Goal 2, which is zero hunger. So from that, there are some international targets that must be met. Stunting child hunger, supporting small farmers, ensuring that there is policy alignment for food security in country, food system transformation, and a number of other initiatives like that. And we have spent the last 10 years working towards that. Shafi will speak a little bit more about some of the impact, but in relation to program, when we started with very early, when the fund started, it's starting by tackling immediately persons' access to food and making sure that there are some immediate reliefs. And then we've been transitioning, as I said, to more developmental while continuing that relief. So we have programs like learning enhancement and nutrition support that have two components. We do our internal assessments and our impact work, and then we look at vulnerable communities and support the schools, the children in those schools. So the two prongs is that we support children that may be considered vulnerable to food security, food insecurity, and we provide them with resources to go to school. That's one part of it, which is the learning enhancement. And we have other support to them, like specialized reading support and stuff like that, that they may need to help them to function in school. We saw children from that program were mostly absent from school. They're high absenteeism. So one of the causes we found is that parents keep them home when they don't have resources to go, and including when they don't have food. So the other element of that is our school feeding program, where we support children. Well, we support the school, those same schools, those that we give support is about a class. So we call it adopt a class, roughly about 25 students. But in those same schools, because while all are not on the same level of vulnerability, the communities those schools are located tells the story similar. So we provide school feeding support to those schools. Government has a school feeding program. All primary school in St. Vincent and the Grenadines have a school feeding program. And with some government intervention, they provide meals for at least lunch to students, but they will have to pay a nominal fee from about $1 to $5, depending on the school. When we support the school, no children who are attending that school is required to pay for that meal. So when we support the school, we give them a stipend, or we say a cash grant monthly towards purchasing of the supplies needed for the school feeding program. And we also contract small farmers to support them with fresh fruits and vegetables, so that it's not like when we went to school. When we went to school, we had milk and biscuits. It wasn't bad. It was something. And that was introduced.
Not when I went to school. When I went to school, there was nothing.
There was nothing. When I went to school, I think that's when the World Food Program started, the school feeding here.
Okay.
And we had milk and biscuit. We weren't a fan.
I know.
But now we try to do it differently, that the meal is complete and a healthy meal. We work along with the Ministry of Education School Feeding Coordinator. We work along with the nutrition unit because they do a 3-week cycle menu. So it takes nutrition on board and ensure that even if you are able to afford, because I use my son as an example, he's probably home listening to me calling his name. I give him money and he goes and buy chicken and chips. Right? So to avoid that, and for those who are not able to, the meal in school is balanced and ensure that you have at least one complete balanced meal for the day. Because as I said, children nutrition is one of the target in SDG 2. That's how long is the program? I have to measure myself because there's quite a lot.
but I mean, even piggybacking on the impact of, for example, the school feeding program, the magnitude can be overstated or even understated. So, for example, on a monthly basis, over 2,000 students are directly a part of the school feeding program. Now, if we have roughly 10,000 primary school entrants, or students, there's 1 in 5 primary school students directly benefiting. And then when you speak to, in many cases, as Safia pointed out, from families who may have, in some instances, feel like they can't afford to send their child to school because of the nutritional deficiencies or the costs. And so it's a very impactful program. And then one of the issues that we're battling now in St. Vincent's NCDs, and it starts, as Safia pointed to, from the entire life cycle. Because of the nutritional structure of our school feeding programs, we're taking that into consideration. So even when you survey different school feeding programs throughout the region, we have a very good model as we acknowledge the importance of fresh vegetables, protein, etc., to ensure that it's relatively balanced. So it's not just about providing food, but we're also looking at the nutritional quality of the food and trying to reach as many kids as possible, because kids who are well-fed and nutritious have better learning outcomes. And as well, now food is no longer, or is to a lesser degree, a deterrent from going to school, because some parents might say, can't send to school because there's nothing for you to eat for lunch.
If I want to ask a few follow-up questions, and then we can come back.
That's the work.
Thank you. First of all, Philbert,
I have just a few questions, but I'll ask them along the way. The first one is basically, what is your main source of funding?
Okay, the ZHF is financed through a levy on telecommunication services that was built into the structure of the organization when it was passed, and also 2% mainly from Flow and Digital, and that's paid to us monthly, and we do resource mobilization.
What was the funding on a legislative basis? Was it?
It was passed in the same act that established the Zero Hunger Trust Fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
And continuing along that question in line, is the funds from the charge to companies, is it passed on through the consolidated fund or directly?
It comes directly to the ZHDF.
Comes directly.
Yes.
And does the government subsidize that, or is there any need for the government to contribute towards that, or does that work? In other words, do you have enough money from that fund to carry a program?
No.
Is there a big deficit?
Fairly. We have been working with Flow and Digital to be a little more accurate in what is remitted to us, and that has improved our financing. But as I was about to say, we do resource mobilization. So we have private sector that contributes part of their corporate social responsibilities at HTF. And we encourage more because, as I said, is a huge task, because every time you make a certain intervention and you figure and you're measuring and you're doing well, something happens that sets you back.
Couple of questions, and I want us to come back more to talk about the contents of the program. But even before, as you're on the financing question, I don't want to give exact numbers, and you shouldn't. But the deficit of the program, after you've considered the funds from the two entities, is about what, 50%, 20%, 30%?
Roughly about 40%.
That's high.
And if we scale our programs to suit those.
But if or when you get contribution from the private sector, how does that figure shift?
It shifts right now, maybe about a 10%. That's why we say we keep.
So it's still about 30% deficit.
We have private sector entities, like you just mentioned, Bank of St. Vincent. Bank of St. Vincent is one of our main contributors. They make a significant donation yearly to the fund, and we thank them for that. Then we have program-specific support. VINLEC comes on board for school feeding. They support 3 schools that is in the areas that they have power plant. We have OSV, we have GECO that support agriculture science, and we'll talk about that. But the support from private sector tend to be program specific. BSV support is for the learning enhancement, nutrition support. So they tend to be program specific. We have collaborated with entities such as the SVG Conservation Fund, who support our Youth in Agriculture internship program. We have had funding from FAO for structure policy. They're supporting right now finalizing a school nutrition policy, a school feeding policy. They supported a campaign we ran before for Buy Local. We are about to launch a project with EU, but that is for the 4 Windward Islands. So we do significant resource mobilization when we have these gaps. No, we don't get funding from the consolidated fund at all.
Okay. Interesting.
That is as of when?
We've never received funding from the consolidated fund.
Okay.
How staff paid?
Well,
staff salaries?
They're paid out of the levy. So
not from the consolidated fund?
No.
Oh, okay.
So
salaries are not the benefits from the levy. Okay.
Yeah. We try to make sure that we keep our financing we do NGO benchmarking. So we keep administration to about 35% of our financing versus no less than 60%. 65% of the funding going towards programming. One of the things we say to persons when we resource mobilize, all of that money goes into program. None of it comes to admin. So that's one of the benefits of having that dedicated financing mechanism. Because any monies we raise goes directly to program to make sure that the program scale is way higher than administrative scale, and we try to maintain that.
Earlier on, sorry, Pigeon, go ahead.
You refer to yourself as the Zero Hunger Trust Fund, but your programs suggest that you're much broader than hunger. Why the emphasis on hunger?
Well, it's the way we see hunger is not just eating. It's a systematic issue that needs a multifaceted approach. If you don't have access to sustainable livelihood, which is one of the things we push, you're going to fall into, the vulnerability category. And that is one of the programs that we say there are developmental programs and there are programs intervention for immediate relief. We push more local production to reduce, again, vulnerability and exposure to external markets to make sure that we are resilient and able to provide for ourselves. So it's multidimensional and you need to address it that way. because even getting in, well, the first thing there's a World Food Program CARICOM survey that comes out annually, and if you look at that, the first thing that people give up is food when they're financial crunch. We know you don't pay a light bill that cut off, you don't pay this cut off, so I'm not going to buy food because I need to pay these things. So that is why you have to look at it systematically and make sure you address all elements of hunger, and not just look at it as access or even eaten. Because then if you don't eat properly, then we have other issues. We have the non-communicable disease, we have learning gaps, we have all those things that we deal with that sets us back as a country.
And so if you look at the interventions, when we speak about a life cycle, right? So for example, if we look at the school feeding and the programs for the early childhood, now children, their access to nutrition is solely based on parent and family. So provide that impacts the learning outcome. Children who have better learning outcomes as they get older have better life outcomes. Yeah. What happens when they reach the secondary school? We support the agri-sci programs. So then now they are at a stage where they can actually grow. Now they can take this as either a career, a skill, or just for like a life skill. Then what happens as you further transition? We have the opportunity for the internships, because now you can take the agri skill into something that not only feeds yourself in a subsistence way, but for life. Yeah. And then we have other initiatives that looks at the entirety of the life cycle, because as Sophia said, when you are vulnerable, the first thing that you forego is food. And even if you want to be more intricate and look at different econ models, they'll use food as like something to put within a model to say, okay, if we give people a certain amount of nutrition, they're able to work more. If they're able to work more, then they could produce more. And so there's this direct connection to how can we ensure that persons are able to be more productive, either via skills, education, opportunities, but at the core of it, there must be an awareness of nutrition support, specifically at where they are within the life cycle, because the requirements of a child is different from the requirements of an adult.
Mm-hmm. I was going to, Pigeon, you've exhausted your question?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
I was going to ask Safia, earlier you said that the school program, I'm asking for clarification.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fee of $1 to $5. That is not those are not the schools which you work with.
The schools we work with don't charge the students.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the school feeding program, who's responsible for
That's
that?
run by the Ministry of Education.
Okay.
And with the nutrition support unit
Mm-hmm.
in the Ministry of Health.
Mm-hmm.
They have set up guidelines. They give schools dry goods supply, I think some school storage too. So that program has been running, I think, ever since the World Food Program had stepped out. I think former government beefed it up, and it's a program that has been continuing throughout.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But the schools with which you work, and you give them a monthly cash grant of...
It depends.
It depends on the size of the school, the location of the school?
It depends on the daily average fed.
Mm-hmm.
So the support we give is £2. We give the cash grant to supplement what they get from the government. That is $75 per child per day.
$75.
75 cents, sorry.
75 cents per child per day. That's your contribution, or that's your contribution?
That's our contribution.
Right, okay.
And that is multiplied by their daily average fed. So if their daily average fed is 200, it's 75 cents per day per 200.
Roughly how many schools do you work with?
Right now, 21?
Yeah, 21.
21 schools.
Rural or urban based?
All over St. Vincent.
All over, including Grenadines, of course.
So we have North Windward. I think North Leeward is the highest capture. Then North Windward. We have urban and peri-urban. And then we have, I think, 2 in the Grenadines. We started with Mario and Mary Hutchins, who have been recently added to that list of schools that we support.
What are the factors that determine whether a school is listed or not listed as part of the program?
We let me see here. We do vulnerability assessment, and it's both economic vulnerability. Well, three things: economic vulnerability, geographical and vulnerability. But the geographical and vulnerability will be broken down a bit more in terms of whether you're susceptible to climate impacts, rain events.
So can I just clarification? And when you say geographical, you mean as not Leeward or Leeward as opposed to Windward as opposed to Grenadines?
No,
as
no.
opposed
What your geography is impacted by. So there, well, naturally, North Leeward and North Windward would always be captured because geographically they're the ones who are affected by climate change mostly and weather events, but also we consider them remote-ish areas, although you don't really have remote areas in St. Vincent. But in terms of accessibility, the further out you have to go for transport, the more expensive things comes. So they are also always considered. And then we look, because they keep copious records from the government school feeding. So when we have done the vulnerability assessment to prioritize, we look at the school that has the highest daily fed to add to the programs, because we keep adding as we have resource to add. So you would find.
Sorry, when you say adding, you mean add in schools?
We started with
you
5.
Add schools?
Yeah, we started with 5. And now
it's
we
all
have
right.
21.
So you add schools. That's what I mean.
We add schools once we have resources.
Okay.
So because our data show that we should capture about 35 schools. If we look at the vulnerability assessment.
How many have you captured so far?
21.
21. So you have.
Yeah.
And these are both primary and secondary?
Just primary. Just primary. Secondary is not as structured. We have other programs that work in the secondary school. Now we try not to duplicate, we try to complement. So take, for example,
Sorry, when you say we have other programs.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines, not Zero Hunger.
Not Zero Hunger.
Okay.
We do one-off support. If anybody comes in and asks for support, we assess and we give support where we can. But Mustic Charitable Fund Foundation has a structured program in secondary schools already that they support some secondary schools. Where we're working with them is where their numbers exceed their allocation. We might have some supplementary there. So we don't really do secondary school. I know the school feeding policy is looking at integrating secondary school into the whole school feeding program. What we found is that we keep pushing these children in the vulnerable communities to do well and to move on to secondary school. But when they get there, they struggle the same way anyway, without that kind of support.
When you say they struggle same way, struggle in terms of eating, academic performance.
If, some of them still need, although we push graduation out of programs, some families are not able to do that in a meaningful way. They have seasonal jobs, they have different type of skills. So those children need continued support. And we know that Mustic Charitable Foundation, not the, it's the foundation or the trust?
The trust.
The trust is doing work in that regard. And they have been on our board for a while, so we are able to coordinate.
Oh, so they're on your board?
They're on the board. We're able to coordinate with them.
I want to even say your board. I want to come to the structure and of course your staff complement and all of that. So we might come back to some of the other aspects, but let's get to your structure. How is it structured?
As I said, we are established by an act. The act says that we are a corporate body. We are defined as a non-profit. We are not to really charge for our services, except that where we do extra work like consultancies or anything that we're doing with any agency. And we have a board of about 14 members constituted by Act. Most of it is named by the Act, and those are public sector agencies. So we have all the ministries that could possibly be impacted by our work. Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, Social Development, Ministry of Education. They're on our board. Derry Williams has been our chairman for the past 10 years.
Good. Yeah, I'm sure you find that that's a good thing.
It is. It's not
You might want to remind our listeners as
Yes.
to Derry Williams.
Derry Williams is the managing director of Bank of St. Vincent. And he has been steering Zero Hunger for the last 10 years.
Sorry, but quite apart from the fact that he's the managing director of the Bank of St. Vincent and Grenadines, he's just a good man.
Yes,
He's a brilliant guy.
To work with.
You have a good chairman.
Hard chairman to not,
You
not
said
to
a
work
hard,
with,
a hard
not to work with, but
in terms of demanding
make sure
performance.
performance is always key, and we appreciate that. So that's the fund has evolved in terms of staff structure. We recently did our HR policies and structure. We started with very, very slim. The first CEO was Laura Anthony Brown, and she started when she started the fund 10 years ago and hit the ground running with some of these same very programs that I'm talking about, focusing immediately on getting persons access to food. I think she started alone. And she then had minimal staff. When I joined about 3.5 years, a little over 3.5 years ago, I'm only the second CEO, we had about 6. We're not much better now. We're just about 10 staff.
10 staff.
Yeah, we try not to have this big complement of staff because we have set our benchmarks. What we try to do is collaborate and coordinate with other agencies. We are a fund. While we have our own programs, part of our mandate is also to finance other programs for government. And we work with civil society. We have been doing that with some structured intervention, SVG Conservation Fund, the Rotary, even community organizations. We have a list of them that work with us. We have, last count, we started with 89 when we did the call. I think we had 52 volunteers that sign up and work with us on different.
And that's individuals or
individuals. So we do a blend of government and community mobilization to carry out our work. We try to work very much at the grassroots level, so that the capture on the ground is more significant than if it's just top down from governmental level.
Just to come back to in terms of the distribution of the schools you work with and your load, how many, are you, to what extent are you focusing in the urban areas like in Kingston, Georgetown? I mean, do you have a lot of schools in those areas that you work with?
In Kingston, I think it's one. We have Lodgeville School, but around Kingston, within about 10 to 15 minutes, Calico, Fair Hall. We have, on this side, we have Clare Valley. So in and around, the Kingston capture is a little more challenging because of the fact that they have access directly to town, where it's not as costly, but we know that there are pockets of high vulnerability and poverty. And that's I think 2 years ago, we onboarded Lodge Village. We onboarded Lodge Village School. And I think one of the schools we are looking at is Kingston Government. We had done so there's a difference between our structured programs and persons accessing. We have a program we call Assistance and Relief. And that program, Assistance and Relief, is to support the unstructured. So if you're not part of a ZHDF program, that doesn't mean you can't get support from ZHDF. So when schools and individuals and community organizations approach us through that program, we could coin a specific intervention. It's just not long term. So it's not that schools would not have ever received support from us, just that they are not on a structured program from ZHTF.
So a school listening to this program this morning
Mhm.
and want to take advantage of the program, what are the initial steps we should advise them?
It's not, we don't make it complicated. It's just a reach out. And
Meaning on just call the office?
yes, just call the office.
Okay.
And we tend to guide you through. We will find out what your needs are. We will do our assessment. We will come and visit your school, understand what exactly we can help you with. Naturally, there's always budget constraints. But it's just, we don't make it complicated.
How do the public, members of the public, know of your existence in terms of contacting you?
Oh, besides us coming on programs,
Yes.
we are all over social media. I think
And for persons who don't have access to social media, presumably.
we are located at second floor NIS building. Our telephone is 457-738.
Could you repeat that?
457-1738. And our email is info@zerohungersvg.com. So,
And- Yeah. Do you offer advisory and consultancy services to persons who may wish to benefit from similar, but not necessarily directly?
no, I don't think. I'm not sure if I'm.
You don't understand.
No,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Rather than providing funds or food, as the case may be, is there any other way entities can benefit, school entities can benefit from the program?
Well, any program we do, we tend to share information with anybody who wants the information. So if you want, because there are schools, we do school gardens. We don't support the school for the school feeding, but we will support you to establish a school garden to feed the school feeding program. It does two things. It does pedagogy to teach children how to grow their own food, but it also gives you three things. It gives you food for the school feeding program to supplement it. And it also sometimes they sell the excesses, which provide further income for the school feeding program. So if it's almost always about funding, and not necessarily about how to. We worked with FAU in one of our programs to do a guide to school garden. So we have that we share with schools if they want to go at it at home. But these things they're cost heavy. So more than likely, sometimes we help resource mobilize the schools. They might ask who is interested. If we know a particular agency or we know a particular private sector who may not necessarily want to work through us, we let them know the school is interested and so forth. So we do, besides the structure work that we do, we try to make sure everybody that needs help and we can help them in one way or the other, that we are supporting them.
Shafiq, I noticed you wanted to come in a long time now.
Yeah, I was just trying to point out that when it comes to these schools, it's a broad reach. And so Safia referenced something called daily average fed. Some schools are denser than others.
Daily average fed.
Yes, referring to the average amount of students that we feed per day per school.
Oh, okay.
So the thing is, in the case of the remote areas, we might have more schools per se on the program, but the southern areas have very densely populated schools.
And southern meaning from where to where?
So when we're looking at, say, the East St. George's and the slightly more urban schools. So for example, in the case of like Fair Hall and the like, that school is, so like within West St. George, over 130 students, whilst Fair Hall and Calico are over 350 students just within two schools. So it's not only the reach as in the diversity, but the density. And so we've tackled both the densely vulnerable schools and also the remote schools, because you might have schools that have a smaller population, but they're very vulnerable. And you have schools that have a dense population, and they're also vulnerable. And so that's why you see like the reach. And so we're trying to plug in as many vulnerable schools based on the type of vulnerability. But once again, funding constraints, time constraints. And so it's a ticklish matters to incrementally adding and scaling. Hence why the partnerships that Safia referenced before and all the other things.
So let's ask, how many students per day or per week, if you wish, benefit from your program in those two schools, Fair Hall and Caliaco?
So in the case of Fair Hall and Calico, 348 students
Benefit from the program?
Yeah.
That's daily?
Daily.
Okay.
And that's just the school feeding. That's not the 25 students that we provide support to go to school.
And that doesn't.
So that's an additional.
Yes.
And 25 from Fair Hall?
25 from Fair Hall, 25 from Caliaco.
So that's 50.
That's 50.
Okay. But before you go, what's the nature of that support?
As I said, they get books, they get uniform, they get resources to go to school. If they're not performing well, then we'll get support for, well, not at Fair Hall, because for them had this structure, but matter of fact, Fair Hall is where we count on to help other schools sometimes. Learning support for reading, for STEM,
What would you say is the average cost, average daily cost, if you like, or weekly or monthly, of providing that kind of support? For those two, in those two schools,
Just those two schools.
Or if you want to give it overall.
The school feeding daily, Shafi, do some calculations. We have the school feeding daily will be 75 cents per day per child. In a term, the average term day is 60 days. So I probably could do term figures better. And then that's not all. We also provide fresh fruits and vegetables. So there is a farmer that goes weekly and on Mondays, Caliaco, I think it's Mondays. Between Mondays and Tuesdays, they supply fresh fruits and fresh vegetables.
And who pay the farmers?
We pay the farmers.
So that's part of your cost?
That's part of our cost. And then...
sorry, is that part of the $75?
No.
75 cents per
No,
day?
that's not part of the 75 cents.
Oh, so how do you factor in the cost of...
That's why I said I probably could do it per term because the term figures...
So the term figure is roughly $15,000 per term within those two, within the cohort of those two schools.
$15,000 for those two students in those two schools?
Yes, for those two schools.
Okay.
And that's outside of the additional things. And the thing is too...
What are the additional...
Okay, so because we almost create a zero hunger ecosystem whereby when there are opportunities for partnerships, training, other benefits, they are added on. So for example, Safia referenced the program that we're going to implement via the EU in the different Windward Islands. Then when you talk about the school guides and all these other things. So yes, there's the school feeding program. Yes, there's the Adopt a Classroom, but on a project level, because they're part of the whole Zero Hunger ecosystem, when new projects and opportunities emerge, they also benefit. And so just the $15,000 isn't even a full valuation of the actual impact between the networking and the other opportunities.
And do you have a complete kind of figure? It's difficult to combine out.
It's difficult.
Yes, it's difficult.
It might be good to have a rough, so you can cost most accurately.
When we cost the support to school, we tend to cost the direct support.
Okay.
Because like last year, right after Beryl, we had a project that we ran with Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Social Development and Farmer Support. We called National Food Security Drive. And all the schools benefited. So we didn't necessarily cost that per school. We cost it per household, right? So
per household is different from per client, per person?
Well, we have different demographic and metrics.
Because
the school breeding is one. We do golden years and nutrition support, which is another one. We do quite a bit. We did agriculture science. We do assistance and relief. We do I'm missing one, YASIP, which is the Youth in Agriculture Internship Program. So our budget, our expenditure for the last 2 years was about 2.5 million. across each program and administration.
Totally.
Totally. Mhm.
2.5 million.
Yeah. And if we count the direct support, it's close to 10,000 Vincentians. So 2.5
So you
million
say you're
by 10.
catering to 10,000 Vincentians.
Yeah.
And those would be students, householders, senior citizens?
Citizens.
Okay.
Yes.
And your budget for that is $2.5 million.
That's what we spend.
Roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's what we spend.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to engage? School is school. You just go to a school and start a discussion. But how do you get to engage elderly, for instance, in the community?
As I said, we get referrals.
Referrals?
Anybody can call us.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can call us. You could call and say, I know Miss James, and Miss James is one person I think you should consider. We'll find Miss James.
Okay.
We'll find Miss James and see what Miss James needs. We are always in the community.
So how do you coordinate with social welfare, for example?
They are one of our first point of contact for verification. The Ministry of Social Development and NIS has been very good in terms of sharing who may be benefiting, because not because you tell us Miss James is in need, we will leave it at that. We're going to see if Miss James is anywhere in the system. So sometimes even if you're in the system, you may need additional help. It's not restricting you from additional help. We're just trying to get the entire picture. So we use the government systems. It's internal, the information don't go anywhere. Most of the time they don't share the direct, but they tell us what.
Do you find that you encounter duplication?
Of course, there will always be people who are trying to use the system and go from one to the next. That's why, as much as possible, we try to use the information that is already captured. We know persons get assistance from the Office of the Prime Minister. We will check they get assistance from Lotto. We'll check their NIS and mobilization are the main areas that we check to see who is getting support already. Like our support to the schools for the uniform, we do the books. Social development does the uniform, right? Because we are both going to the schools. They were always doing uniform. We are both going to schools and ask, who are your most vulnerable students? And they do an interview process and they're vetted and they're on the program. So then once we have done that, social development will give them the uniforms, we do the books. So you reach more. That program, I think last year we vetted about 450 students, and I think 432 collected support. So you have that kind of behind the scenes collaboration and coordination that is done to make sure the impact is wide and greater than just one person receiving all the support.
So what are the issues that could cause a person to be deferred rather than get assistance there?
The issue that somebody could be deferred is the level of vulnerability and our ability to support at the time. So we're not saying that you don't need, but there's somebody else that is more needed than you, and our resources can only go here. That's the only thing that causes people to be deferred.
And deference is not a common activity.
Yeah, it is, particularly with the elderly persons. There are people we deny because you find them that they're not necessarily forthcoming with information, and when we do our due diligence, you see they really should not be on the program, so they will be denied.
Okay.
But for the elderly, nobody's really telling you are elderly who don't need, so we don't ever deny an elderly. You might not be onboarded in this stretch, but we can come back to you based on the resource availability and who we have in our system that may need support.
Who do you determine to be an elderly? Is it by 65, age only or purely 65 and older?
So basically, there's no way for you to go back into the workforce. So if we can help you go back into the workforce, we will do that. So at 65, you're outside the workforce. And we don't just do elderly, we do elderly indigent. So even sometimes they're on another government program, but that's getting them nowhere.
How do you deal with the persons who are over 65 or 65 and over and are in the informal sector of and still working? How do you deal with those people? Do you encounter such people?
We do.
How do you deal with
We do. So once you're working, you would not necessarily be on the program.
So if you're 65 or over and you're working and getting a livable wage, you won't be on the program.
You wouldn't be on the program.
If you're not getting a livable wage, what happens?
Then we can assist. The program that we do with elderly is 2 pound. We support elderly with a cash transfer on a reloadable card. That right now, Graves, Bonady, Randy's are the ones who accept the card. They can't get cash. It's only to shop groceries.
Mondays.
Graves,
Randy Mondays.
Yeah. Oh, Bonady, yeah.
I think you did mention.
Yeah. They can't get cash. They could only shop groceries. Sometimes they are not able to do it themselves, so we try to get a caretaker for them, somebody close by who is willing.
So for a person living in Fancy or Chateaubriand, in that category, they have a card.
They have a card.
How do they get to go to James?
The caretaker support them.
What are the prospects of expanding the number of merchants who are involved like that?
Well, it is a little administratively heavy because they have to send us the receipts and stuff. Not everybody is willing. And they must have a Bank of St. Vincent point of sale. So we are right now talking to some pharmacies, and they express their willingness. And we are looking for 2 community shops, one on the Windward and one on the Leeward, who may have point of sales to pilot with them, because we realize persons coming in, limit access. So we are trying to see how we can expand that to make sure that more persons can access it outside of Central Kingston. But Randy's anywhere accept. Graves anywhere accept.
Would you say that the demand is great for the service that you provide?
Greater than we can afford at this.
So it's great.
Yes.
Is it a growing grade? Is it an increasing grade or?
It's a fluctuating grade. It depends on what's happening. When I started 3.5 years ago, we had interest and we had persons coming in and you're seeing the need. And that was right after COVID and volcano, so the numbers were high. And then there was a little lull and burial happened, and we're in the situation that we are not able to cover the needs. So that brought me to the project that we did with the Ministry of Agriculture. We had scarcity of fresh fruits and vegetables in St. Vincent at the time. You know what Beryl did to the agriculture industry. And the prices were sky high. So besides persons not being able to access in the quantity they wanted, they couldn't afford based on the price. We were looking at a pound of tomato for $15 a pound. I don't know what egg prices were, but I'm told that egg was heading to about $14, $15 a dozen. Basic household items that you will use. So we ran the project. We call it the National Food Security Drive, that was primarily focused on teaching you to grow your own food in your backyard. We got support from the FAO, ECA, Alba Bank, and some government intervention from Ministry of Agriculture, where we give people seeds, seedlings, poultry, and tools to establish backyard gardens to grow their own food. The uptake was more than we anticipated. While we
uptake meaning from persons who need the response from persons who need.
Well, we had different categories. We had persons that we were targeting because we have their names in our systems from coming for support or being on our program, as well as mobilization. And then we had persons volunteering to do it themselves.
What was your priority?
Our priority, well, the support you got from us was different.
No, in terms of the two categories of your priorities of persons who need families,
yes. And the support you got from us were different. So
okay,
volunteer people basically all got seeds and seedlings,
Mhm.
but the persons who needed got the tools and the
Oh,
training and all
All
of
right.
that they needed to be able. We know we did more, but documentation and stuff. We verified 2,000.
Over 2,100.
2,100.
Sorry, over 2,100 persons were verified.
And they benefited.
Yes, but the household impact, because within our calculations, we also have something called a dependency ratio. And Saf kind of alluded to it, whereby like you have somebody, so they might be working, but they have 3-4 persons who are dependent. So in the case, even though 2,000
On the wage that they make.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now we have 2,000 persons, but roughly over 10,000 when you actually look at the household.
The household needs.
The
Okay.
household needs.
That program was fairly successful. We have how much persons are continuing? About 50%.
Yeah.
Continuing.
Are continuing their gardening when we did the evaluation. So they are producing their own food, and about 51% of their food, their vegetable consumption, their basic food consumption.
Okay. But is that list of persons growing? Or is it stagnant? Is it, you know what I mean? It's fixed.
We just did our first. It's a project. It's just ran for a year.
Oh, I see.
So we
Okay.
just did our first evaluation. So we haven't had time. The time hasn't gone back to see whether or not it will be long lived or not. But a number of planting cycles have happened. So we know about 51% of them are continuing to plant their own food.
But from the success that you've shared just a while ago, and from people's reaction to the program, would you say there is likely to continue?
That depends on
support.
On support.
Okay.
It is something that we are interested.
Well, you have to make the case, because I haven't read it yet, but somebody's I come to it just now. Somebody's offering to donate seeds, so you have to make the case.
We'll happily take the seeds.
Well, we come back to that, but you have to make the case. You know what I mean? That's all.
There is interest, and there are persons. We wanted to reach 7,000 households. We know we reach more than 2,100, but those are the people that gave us the data and verified. So we didn't want to count those that we had partial information for. And we did not reach 7,000. And we didn't get 7,000 out of the air. We are looking at the data that we have nationally in terms of targeting what would you call vulnerable to food insecurity. Some might be in the poverty, some might be indigent, but in that line. So when we had 7,000 households, not persons, because we only given to one person in a household, we did not meet that target. So we know by right we should continue a second phase.
I want us to. Time has gone so quickly. But sorry, Pigeon.
Yes. Young people listening to this program now may wish to be a part of your work. What attributes or skills should they bring to you to demonstrate that they are capable and willing to do that?
And Pigeon, if you permit me, and what incentive they will get? Is it a credit on the school thing or whatever? What incentive would you be?
Schools doesn't give incentives, right?
I'm talking about zero hunger. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Zero hunger. I'm talking.
We are just about to launch on Wednesday a thing that we call Youth Food System Framework. We have a steering committee of 5 youths, a little more mature youths already in place. The intention of that food system framework is to get youths more involved. And we want to have 2 components of it at NGO, which is policy, advocacy, training, development, and a cooperative that brings youths into the formal food system.
So they would receive training?
Yeah, they would receive training.
Oh, so that would be part of the incentive for them?
And part of the program that we intend to roll out with that, we're not going to be the ones doing it. The youths are going to be the ones doing it. For the first 3 years, we provide support office support, coaching, mentoring, and we hope they graduate out of our support. But as ZHTF, we already committed about $80,000 to support that framework, including micro grants to youths to do agriculture and agriculture production to grow their own food, and possibly do it as a livelihood activity. So
Okay. And if some of these youths are at school, secondary school, could they do it as part of their SBA or their credit or what have you?
So one of our programs is school agriculture science. When we started to support school agriculture science, there were 9 secondary schools doing agriculture science in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. With our support, we now have, some of them started on their own. We now have 20 secondary schools doing, out of the 29 secondary schools doing agriculture science. Our goal is to have all the schools doing agriculture science.
And that includes some schools in the urban area.
Yes.
That didn't think agriculture was part of the repertoire of program that they did.
I think we started that.
No names will recall.
I will call names. I will call names.
So it's up to you only, not us.
We call names. We started with grammar school. I mean, there were mixed feelings about supporting grammar school. What we do, we give you that grant to start up, and you have to report to us every term what you do and whether you need food assistance expand. And or if you're doing it already, we give you a grant to innovate and expand to bring in, climate smart technology and so forth. We started with grammar school, and when we started with grammar school, other schools expressed their interest. So now we now have grammar school, high school, Thomas Sanders, Timmy Intermediate High, St. Martin Secondary. Bishop was the only urban school that was doing it at the time, and they have received our support also. So we are getting there, and that now becomes part of their curriculum. A lot of the practical goes towards their SVAs and so forth. Yeah.
And so, pigging back on the whole zero hunger ecosystem, when we had the stakeholder consultations with these same agricultural science teachers, they were extremely happy for the different aid that we provided, whether the implements for AgriSci, such as the tools. But what we also see emerging was that schools were now partnering and supporting one another to produce help with the students with AgriSci. So as in one school might have a pen of which a school will go down to observe and learn. And so you see a greater degree of collaboration and partnership. And so when you're talking about the impact and the benefits, not just the tangible impact of these kids with AgriSci, but it's almost become a mainstream thing whereby it's mainstream. And when I went to grammar school, AgriSci wasn't an option. When I taught Bishop's that was the only urban school that did AgriSci. Now I could go to high school, grammar school, intermediate, of which I taught, they do AgriSci. And now we see a cross-pollination of the AgriSci teachers having an awareness that AgriSci is not just something for the rural schools, but the urban schools. And what you're learning, and something that we often take for granted, I think Peter pointed that out, and Saf alluded to that, you have kids who come from a rural context, who are transplanted into an urban school based on academic performance and whatnot. And then because it's an urban school, they're not given these skills that directly connect back to the rural context, which is the AgriSci. And by mainstreaming that into the urban schools, we're now kind of bridging that gap. So we're seeing this emergent system of which the youth food security framework is also complementary to. But once again, this is in the initial stages. So we're now observing and we're now building it out.
Are you using that as a measure of the success of the Zero Hunger Fund program?
It is. We have different measures, and the attraction of youth into production and even innovation in the agriculture sector, because is one of our indicators. And that is necessary because we've been hearing the conversation that we must produce more local to reduce our food import bill. We can't do that. We have to do that by 2 things: increase production and change the culture of how we eat. So to do that, you have to have the continuity of the older persons who were involved in agriculture now transitioning out, but you did not have that interest at the youth level. So yes, it is one of our success factors.
A question, a serious question. Where have you been, and how come we have not been hearing about you over these years?
Who has been zero hunger? Because I've been here. I've been well, I keep coming in and out, but I've been here. But zero hunger. This is what I mean. It started with very small staff. I mean, we just have our first communication officer ever. So there was some.
And who is your first communication officer?
Jamila Vincent. So we had Sharon and Lois last year helping us.
Okay.
But she was API staff. This is our first dedication.
So this is your full-time staff.
This is our full-time staff. So there had been some communication gap, but we're pushing because we need the public to be aware, and public education is a big part of zero hunger.
Pigeon, you continue.
No, I say they seem to be doing so much, and even myself, who's supposed to be aware of these things, weren't aware. And so I'm definitely glad to hear what is happening now.
We have a website.
What is the state? Given all that you've been involved in, all that you are involved in currently, what can I push you to give a statement of the state of hunger in the country in St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
No.
I can push you, but you don't want to answer. Maybe Sophie can answer.
The best way to describe it is it fluctuates, and because we have, I didn't think we look at fishers before, and after burial, we had to look at fishers because they were impacted significantly. So it changes, and this is why the goal of zero hunger, while we mean to do as much as we can to achieve it, it may not be practicable.
Let me ask you a question another way. To what extent would you say, from your experience and your observation, that price fluctuation is impacting the level of hunger?
It's notable, but it's notable, but it's also seasonal and driven by exogenous shocks. So, for example, burial, soufre, marginal spike in fuel. And these are things that we can't control. No. So these are things that we can't control. Hence,
so given what has happened so far in the 10 years or whatever, do you expect, or certainly in the last 2-3 years, do you expect your challenge to become greater going forward?
We do, because what happens if we only look at availability of food, and don't look at sufficiently.
But would you include price?
We must. Price is one of the things that affects the access. So when we say access, we look at food available, affordable, and nutritious.
Okay.
So what happens with these spikes? The availability might be limited if you have disruption in the shipping and external trade, but definitely access, affordability, and nutritious is compromised. So I no longer buy vegetables. I buy rice because it can stretch, right? I might buy corned beef because you see spots of corned beef in the rice and you think you have meat.
That's fooling.
Right?
All right.
So that is what is compromised. It may not be that you're not eating, but
so
what you're eating.
But hold on now. You talk about, are you include in that basket imported and locally grown? That's what you've done?
Yes.
Okay, well, I thought earlier on I heard you saying that you're encouraging people to get into their own production backyard. So it's not a question of de-emphasizing import.
Well, we are de-emphasizing import by telling you to grow your own food.
That's what I thought. I heard you saying.
That's why I say, so it reduces vulnerability to those things. But we are not there yet. So definitely what is happening, in the meantime, we are going to see a spike of even where they're eating is what is what we are eating. Right?
I remember I read an article, was it last week or before, by Professor Justin Robinson, in which he was saying, given what's happening in the world, the war, American war, Israeli war in Iran, and the possible spin-off. And he was saying that there should be more. We should encourage people to get into more backyard farming and so. I don't know if you've seen the article, but
I've seen the
you have seen it.
I've
Okay.
seen the article.
I mean, the thing is, you hear all this work. Please note, Zero Hunger is not a ministry. It's not a
Well.
department. Right? It's a staff of
And it's
10.
only $2.5 million.
Good. So that's
Okay.
the context. Yeah? And it's not like if you could go to cabinet and boom and require more.
But maybe there needs to be an outlet, a revision of the legislation to allow you to go to cabinet.
No, the legislation provides for it.
Provide for what?
That we can get money from the consolidated fund.
Oh well, then there you go. There you go.
But the thing that us being a fund that have our is the agility to move within the communities that we need to move fairly more responsive than a government system would be.
Yeah.
So our preference is to raise funds as much as possible and to make sure that what we have is used in the most efficacious manner.
We need to have some interaction with the public and to, because we've been going at it for a long time.
It didn't seem that way.
Before we do, what's that?
It didn't seem that way.
Yeah, it's a long time. We'll have a few minutes to be. Before we do, well, first of all, somebody sent a voice message, but the policy here, we don't take voice messages.
Okay.
I tried to do something last week and it messed up. So the person who sent this message, her name is Anita. Please note that we don't open voice messages on this program. You would have to put it in writing or call us. It's a different thing. All right. In the meantime, though, let me say the number to call is 457-9997, and we're discussing the 10 years of existence of the Zero Hunger Trust Fund. And in studio, we have the CEO, Safia Horn. I can't remember your first. Beak, yes. And Mr. Samuel. Let me remember.
Shafiq Sam.
Oh, it's Sam.
Yes, Sam.
Where did I get Samuel from? The number to call is 457-9997. That would take you to us via WhatsApp or straight. In the meantime, Safia, there is an offer coming from former Consul General to Canada, Mr. Fitzhuggins. He's saying to ask if he can donate seeds to Zero Hunger Trust Fund.
We will happily
Tell him donate today.
Yes.
Okay.
I can stop on my way home and pick them up. But to say that this is not the first time.
To help with the gardening aspect of the
this
program.
is not the first time he.
But hold on,
working.
you'd come into it. Let's take this call and we'd come back. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Oh, yes. Hello. My name is Marilyn Valentine. I just have one simple statement to make, and that is what is clearly missing there is the connect between the agricultural ministry, extension officers, supply of seedlings, etc. I'm sure everybody would agree with that. You can't stimulate back home gardening unless there's some sort of support, including the supply of seedlings, that type of thing.
Valentine, just hold on. Let me ask Safia to respond.
Okay, thank you ever so much. Have a good day.
All
I'll
right.
come off and listen for the response, okay?
Okay, good.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for calling.
Goodbye.
We do collaborate with the Ministry of Agriculture, and their extension services. There's a unit in the Ministry of Agriculture called Rural Transformation. They have been running backyard program for years, and they have available extension services. They are on our board, and we work with them. But outside of that, I think there's need to be a national education where you can get seedlings. Ministry of Agriculture produce seedlings, but they are private entities. I mean, just since we do this garden, I've seen Peppercorn have a pop-up shop every Friday and Saturday.
But I think what Valentine is saying, do you get seedlings from the ministry? I think that's the question.
We did when we did the drive. That's why I was saying the technical area from where we got the seedlings. We got support from the Taiwan Technical Mission initially. They did the seedlings, and they trained. They helped.
So you no longer have a need for seedling. That's what you're saying?
No, we do.
Okay, well, I
do.
think that's what you said. Ongoing.
We get, but they're available.
Okay, so you do get. That's not an issue.
Not in this scale, because they also produce for farmers.
Yeah.
So we also work with. Remember, we have a goal where we're trying to help small producers also. So there are the private suppliers that help us. Ministry of Health just had a health fair where they distributed some seedlings.
I think she was pointing particularly to the people with whom you work. So the answer would be yes?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So we have both private and government that works with us.
All right, so go back to the offer made by former Consul General Fitzgerald Huggins. You're saying that you pass there on the way out?
Yes, just let me know and I'll pass and collect. But that's not the first time. I know we got donation of seeds from Still Kicking, which is a charity in Canada.
Okay.
And we got them through Consul General. So some of the seeds.
All right, so there is making.
If you have more, we'll happily take them and continue to.
So you know how to make the connection, do you?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
All right. So there you go.
We have heard concerns being expressed about school vendors, tuck shops, and the quality, the nutritionality of the food they serve, or items that they sell for consumption.
Pigeon, could you just hold for me? I want you to just take this call. Oh, sorry, it's called.
Yeah. Do you in any way have any impact on what happens at that level?
Well, we do advocacy, but besides that, because we're able to move in and out of government, we're at the table. As I said, we got support from the FAO that's working through the nutrition unit for school nutrition policy. They're supporting 2 policies right now: school feeding policy and a school nutrition policy. And the school nutrition policy will speak to some of those issues about what is available for consumption in school. But that's been led by the nutrition unit. But we have worked on it with them.
And somebody's asking, do you take help from individuals,
Yes,
like
we
someone who willing to pay for lunch for some kids?
We do. We take help. You can donate directly to us. I don't know Bank of Information.
Okay, so we have a call. Let's take the call. We'll come back to that. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Cecil, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon to you, Lancelot.
Yeah, I'll be quick.
Yes.
I basically want to congratulate Zafib with the excellent management she has shown with respect to the Zero Hunger Trust Fund, having been there for that short time. I don't know where you 2 guys live. The Zero Hunger Trust Fund, as far as I know, is always in the media, and I follow them very well from the very beginning when Mrs. Brown was CEO. They were always there. All of the things that Safia mentioned today in terms of the program, their programming, you heard them. If you pay attention to this kind of these kinds of issues, you heard them. So I really want to congratulate her for the work that she's doing. I want to. Well, I've always been advocating for that home garden initiative that they had, and I think the rural transformation program in the Ministry of Agriculture, they do a lot of it also, and those programs are beyond Zero Hunger. Those are programs that goes to the heart of our economic and social development. What I mean by this, the mere fact that you're introducing our population to locally produce food, locally produce fruits and vegetables, it means that you are getting them to develop at pace. And so that when they're not even producing it in their homes, they will get accustomed to using it. And when they have to buy food, notwithstanding the budget issues that they may face, they will give priority to these items. I also believe that when you do home gardens, that there's always the the potential for the excess to be taken to the market, whether it's in your own community or it's in the national, you sell them in one of the urban areas. So this is an excellent program. It is one of those that you see where government takes.
Hello? It's in, so one of us, maybe me, made a move one and cut off Lansford. I hope he calls back to finish.
Well, if there's not a call, I want to thank
Yes.
him for his kind remarks and his best wishes. The program at Rural Transformation is always ongoing. We run a project and we hope to do a second. We keep giving support that way. We hope to do a second phase of it. But right now, one of the things the Rural Transformation Unit is doing is and we did it with them for 2 years, a backyard garden competition to stimulate.
Safi, just let me ask, I'm not sure what happened there just now, so perhaps if I could ask Lanza to call us again. I'm not sure what happened, and there's no call coming in, so I don't know if it's something we did with the line, but Lansford, can you repeat your call, please? Yes, Safia.
Yes, I was saying one of the things they do is a backyard garden competition to stimulate continuity. And that competition is run, there's registration open now.
All right, so Lansford is calling back. Let's take the call. Maybe. Hi, Lansford. Sorry about that just now.
That's okay, Cecil. That's how the technology works. I was basically wrapping up. I don't know where I got disconnected, but I was making the point that this is a very good example of good governance. You have a government that recognizes what is being done in the international community. I'm talking about these goals. Goal 2, you take it, you make it a policy of your government. You take it to the next step where you legislate it. And I think the model that they set up with respect to having this organization running much an NGO, it's excellent. And I believe that is partially what contributes to the success that it has been so far. So I'll go out by simply thanking Safia and her staff and those who were before her for the excellent work that they're doing, and hope that they will continue to get the support that is required for them to do this good work. Thank you, Cecil.
Thanks, Lansford. Thanks for calling as usual. Yeah, Safi, are you going to continue?
I was just going to say that it's systemized that it reached to a point of a national competition.
Okay.
And so to address continuity when we give this kind of intervention and support.
Somebody's asking, and I'm mindful of the time right now. Somebody's asking by WhatsApp, what has been the personal contribution of the former PM to the Zero Hunger Trust Fund? Has there been?
He said it a number of times. He contributed 1 month's salary every year for 5 years. To the
every year still?
No, for 5 years. The first initial 5 years.
At the time when he was Prime Minister.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So and the person saying again, has there been any solicitation from this cabinet for personal donation as precedented by the former?
No, we have.
He asked if there has been any such solicitation.
Not from Zero Hunger Trust Fund.
Okay, all right. But I don't know why he asked that. Was there solicitation from?
No, that was volunteer. And we take funding. I think somebody was asking if we take funding from individual. We encourage donation. You can donate directly to our bank account. The information is on our website. Our website is www.zerohungersvg.com.
The person who sent the WhatsApp was asking about willing to pay for lunch for some kids.
Yeah.
That can come via your?
They can come via us.
Okay.
They can go directly to the school. When persons come via us, there's a little more accountability on the school and the individual part.
Okay.
But we don't want to restrict anybody getting support by telling them they have to come to us.
But they can go to your website.
They can go to our website,
see your
banking information,
right.
and donate. Or they can come into the office or call us.
This is a person who is overseas.
Yeah.
Who
They
asked
can
that
go-
question.
I was just going to give an example where somebody asked for their wedding gift to be contribution to the fund, and we got about 4,500 EC dollars from that.
Okay.
So individuals have been contributing, and we encourage more of that. I think at a point we are going to join the diaspora initiative that the government have reaching out to encourage more diaspora organization and individuals to contribute to this kind of programming, whether it's through JDF or direct intervention, because we alone can't do it.
Even as you said that, have you been invited to, or have you taken the initiative, Zero Hunger I'm talking about, to go overseas?
That's what I'm saying. We have been invited.
By when and
Invest SVG has invited us to join the mission.
this time?
This time, yeah. Yeah.
And where would you be going? Which country would you be going?
There's a meeting on Monday, and from Monday, depending on the resources we have available, we'll decide where we will go, and we'll ask them to respond to us.
Hold on. I thought you said you're invited.
Yeah.
At your cost?
Of course, at our cost. Yeah.
Oh, I thought
No.
You may as well just pay your own passage and go to New York.
No,
and
it's different in a structured system. It would be more impactful. We have individuals from the diaspora reach out all the time, as I said.
Okay. No, it's just that to me, it's natural that if you're invited to go as part of a delegation by government, that your costs will be covered.
I think everybody who is going is covering their costs from their own votes.
Private sector included.
Yeah, everybody.
But you're not private sector as far as I'm
No,
my
I
understanding.
think if investors will be going, they're covering their own costs. Trade is diaspora unit is going.
But investors
covering
which is
their own
government.
costs.
Investors which is government, isn't it?
Yes, they are.
Trade is also government.
Yes.
Right. So their costs will be paid under that. Yeah. So I'm saying, in as much as Zero Hunger Fund is doing such fantastic work, which Pigeon and I knew a little bit, but Pigeon didn't know about. And a lot of people didn't know. And you're achieving so much success. You're complementing the work of government. I could go on. Seems to me that a mission going overseas, like Invest SVG, would include you as, when I say you,
The
Zero Hunger
organization,
Fund,
yeah.
as one in the delegation to be treated as such, you know? I'm making your case, and I hope I hope those who would respond with the MI case, because when they ask you to cover your costs, it means you'll be depleting on what the little that you have already. You know what I mean? Come on. You know what I mean?
Well, with hoping that there's significant return on the investment.
You've been either bashful or diplomatic, maybe both. Anyway, okay. But anyway, so there's some good people who are making good offers, like former Council General Huggins. Make sure you pass it by him.
I took his number, so I'm going to call him when I'm done.
And then you have our good brethren, Coach Mason. Anytime he hears a cause, he makes a contribution. It's amazing.
Yeah.
He already contributed to the SVG Cuba Friendship Society appeal.
Yeah.
And now, that was last week, you know.
Wow. Okay.
And now he's on again making another contribution.
And that is
And he's no government. He's no government minister. Coach Joe, I hope I'm representing your interests well and representing your cause. Okay.
Thanks so much for their contribution.
Yeah. Pigeon, any other? All right. So, folks, we're just about there for today. Any strong, how you want to run that?
Just for information, as I said, April 6th is what we consider Zero Hunger Day. So this year we're pushing out a call. Use that day to give back to your community in whatever form. think about our mission and our mandate and give back. Your neighbor, your community, do a structured program or anything. And this year it is a holiday, so there's nothing restricting you from doing a give back. On Wednesday, to launch our month of celebration, we are having what we call a commemorative launch and National Zero Hunger Dialogue. This will be at UE from
That's the open campus, global campus, sorry.
UE Global Campus site here in St. Vincent. We're doing that on Wednesday. It's the first time we're having a Zero Hunger Dialogue, so we'll be presenting our 10-year impact report and the framing, because we are also doing our strategic planning now for the next 5 years. We will be presenting the findings from that same project, the National Food Security Drive, and we'll be launching the Youth in Agriculture Food System Framework. So that is to bring all our stakeholders together to have one voice discussion. And we are having an essay competition with schools that's run from the 1st to the 23rd. Essay, art, photography, and it's simple. A hunger-free St. Vincent, my role, my future, my role. That's the topic everybody has to address. We're doing a call for Vincentians to join us and register. We want to have 10,000 backyard gardens by 2030. 2030 is the timeline for SDGs. There are discussion about what's going to happen after 2030, because all of the things that has impacted the ability of countries to meet the targets. So we are having that call, and we're launching that call, 10,000 gardens by 2030. Whether it be school gardens, community gardens, home gardens, register with us to do that. And we ourselves, every year, we do something. We started small with our staff. We call it the Weekend Drive. We can anything. So we give back food to our elderly. And this year, we call the entire public service to join us. So I'm hoping that they give generously, and that food packages will be donated to all the people on our Golden Years Nutrition Support Program. So we have a month, and persons will be seeing us out in the community. My last words I always leave is that zero hunger cannot be achieved by one organization or institution. We have to be the ones to take ownership to zero hunger in St. Vincent and Again. If you ever take ownership to be responsible, we'll help you get there. We'll show you pathways to get there, but you have to take ownership. And it starts by simply, even if it's a can, we drink Coke, plant a tomato plant in a Coke bottle, and own our own food security. And that is the message we keep trying to tell Vincent, give Vincent, and that's the message I want to leave with them today.
Mr. Sam, any final word?
Well, I'd like to encourage the young people in particular that for St. Vincent and the Grenadines to have a future whereby we feel or we know that we're food secure, where zeroing hunger is a reality, then it requires young people in particular to be on board. I think in times past, there was a lot of language specifically tailored to youth being the future. And in our activity of launching of the Youth Food System Forum, there's a unique opportunity to put youths at the center of the food systems going forward, and to say that there is a place for young people in the food systems locally. There's a place for young people in chartering the course for St. Vincent and the Grenadines regarding the food system. And we need all hands on deck, not from an isolated perspective, but to collaborate with elders and different stakeholders, and also even the persons who are technically not youths, as in the early childhood and the primary schools children, to allow for St. Vincent and the Grenadines to achieve that aspirational goal of zeroing hunger.
All right, we've had a good program, and I think you guys have done yourselves and your organization a fantastic job today. We will be willing to accommodate you if you want to give an update to how things are going. Anytime you feel the need for that, we'd be willing to accommodate you, so please know that. All right. In terms of today, I just want to remind our listeners of and somebody's asking to be reminded of the Cuba, the SVG Cuba Society Solidarity Appeal. It's the SVG Cuba Friendship Society. is at the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The account number is 130016. 130016. And again, is a cause worthy of the assistance of every Vincentian. So let's make our effort count. The government of Grenada, Petit Martinique and Carriacou, they have contributed $500,000 to the cause, the Cuban cause. Let's take a sheet, maybe a line from their outreach and do likewise or better. In fact, we have reasons to do better. And I'm kind of appealing to our government to contribute in a meaningful way, perhaps in a way more meaningful than Grenada, to the cause, to the Cuban cause. Grenada contributed $500,000 US. Why can't we not match our bet and do better than that? In the meantime, the SVG Cuba Friendship Society, they are continuing the appeal, and once we are here, we would continue to echo their appeal. Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that's their account. That's where their account is, and the number is 130016. All right. In the meantime, people have been requesting a replay of that song, and I'll be obliged. Okay, I'm trying to see. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes. Sometimes you get to that, which is what the song says.
Some days it takes me a minute or two, but the world keeps turning like it's meant to do. And time don't wait, it just carries you through. I've had good days and a few slip away. Had a few.
All right, so that's the program for today. Pijan, we've had a good one.
I want to congratulate our panel this morning. I knew Sapphire's mother, and I'm thinking now that the apple didn't fall far from the tree at all.
Exactly, from the roots of the tree.
I sense the same spirit. The first time meeting,
same spirit, same love for people.
Yes,
same commitment.
Yes. And I'm not surprised she's in this particular field.
Yes.
And first time meeting Shafiq, I want to wish him all the best.
Yes, and to both of you again, we wish you much love and respect going forward, and we wish you all the best. And at any time, feel free to reach out to us when we can. We would accommodate you to talk about all the lovely things that you guys are doing at the Zero Hunger Trust Fund. So on your behalf, I'm Pijan and Karen, and I want to thank all the two radio stations that have carried the program today, Star FM and Garfana Radio. My name is Cecil. Good afternoon, have a good day, and we would just go out with the song.
Some days it takes me a minute or two. The older I get, the older I get, the more that I know there ain't nothing wrong to. Some days it takes me a minute or two, but the world keeps turning like it's meant to do. And time don't wait, it just carries you through. I've had good days and a few slip away. Had a few things work out a different way. But you live long enough and you'll see it's true. The things worth keeping take time to come through. We're just passing through time, like the wind through the pines. Just small little pieces in a bigger design. The older I get,